Today's video covers the so-called leverage effect. Mr. Levy is planning to acquire a new production machine. Assuming that Mr. Levy plans to finance the production machine with an additional bank loan at an annual interest rate of 7%, and that the production machine enables him to achieve an annual return on total capital of 10%, the leverage effect would come into play. This is because Mr. Levy would be able to generate a higher return of 10% using a lower cost source of funds at 7%. The leverage effect is defined as the dependency of the return on equity on the use of borrowed capital. If the return on total capital exceeds the cost of debt, denoted as I, this is referred to as a leverage opportunity, where the return on equity increases as the level of debt rises. However, if the return on total capital is lower than the cost of debt, it is referred to as a leverage risk, where the leverage effect does not materialize. The leverage effect and the return on equity can also be calculated. In the next fiscal year, Mr. Levy is planning to undertake a large project. The entrepreneur has a total capital composed of equity and debt of $2 million. The project's gross profit, that is, the profit before taxes, is estimated at $350,000. Additionally, the cost of debt is 7%, meaning Mr. Levy can borrow funds from his bank at this interest rate. The debt ratio amounts to 11.11%. That means that 11.11% of his total capital consists of borrowed capital. Mr. Levy now wants to determine the project's return on equity and calculate in advance whether the project represents a leverage opportunity or a leverage risk. To answer this question, Mr. Levy first calculates the project's return on total capital. The formula for calculating the return on total capital is return on total capital equals gross profit divided by, in brackets, equity plus debt. Substituting into the formula, return on total capital equals $350,000 gross profit divided by $2 million in brackets total capital consisting of equity and debt. The result is a return on total capital of 17.5%. Mr. Levy then compares the return on total capital with the cost of debt and realizes that the return on total capital is higher than the cost of debt. Therefore, the project represents a leverage opportunity. Next, Mr. Levy wants to calculate the project's return on equity, that is, the return on his invested equity. The formula for calculating the return on equity is return on equity equals return on total capital plus, in brackets, return on total capital minus I times, in brackets, debt divided by equity. Substituting into the formula, return on equity equals 17.5%, calculated return on total capital, plus, in brackets, 17.5% minus 7% cost of debt, times 0.11 debt ratio equals $200,000 debt, divided by $1.8 million equity. The project's return on equity is therefore 18.65%. This means that the invested equity yields a return of 18.65%. To further illustrate the leverage effect, let us assume that the debt ratio is no longer 11.11%, but that the entrepreneur has taken on significantly more debt, increasing the debt ratio to 60%. We now calculate the return on equity with a debt ratio of 60%. Using the formula, return on equity equals 17.5%. The return on total capital plus, in brackets, 17.5% minus 7% cost of debt times the debt ratio of 0.6. The result is a return on equity of 23.8%. This is significantly higher than the previous 18.65%. This confirms the leverage opportunity and demonstrates that as long as the return on total capital exceeds the cost of debt, the return on equity increases with a higher debt ratio. Mr. Levy is pleased with the good return on equity achieved through the leverage effect and is eager to take advantage of further leverage opportunities in the future. We hope this video has helped you understand the topic of the leverage effect. See you next time, and have a good one.